Registering. Looks like we got about a 10-second delay for those that are watching live, so you'll be seeing me in 2, 1. Let's see, watch it on the tube. Yep, I am live on the tube. Oh, let's bring the music down. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is John. This is my channel, Your Renaissance Man. I am doing this as a live stream initially. It'll probably, well, it will turn into a long form content video also at some point. I've been wanting to do more live, so that's why I'm doing this as a live first. Because I would really like to do more of that. Now we got to get rid of the echo of me watching myself on YouTube. There we go. I just had to watch that to make sure it was going out. Anyways, so I've been on this ADHD journey as an adult. I was diagnosed later in life, and well, I'll get to that more in depth in a minute. So what this is about is talking about my journey with ADHD as an adult and learning how to manage it and my experience being on meds now for 30 days. So before I dive into all that, first I want to thank our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're willing to do so, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you've subscribed already, if you can continue to support us by either like, commenting, or sharing. So now that we're done with all the business, I got to shut that off. Okay, that is off. Okay. So backstory a little bit. I was diagnosed with ADHD about a little over a year ago, and it was mostly for curiosity's sake. It wasn't, well, at the time it was for curiosity's sake. And because my son had been dealing with issues while he was going to college and, our going back and forth on it. And we both kind of came up with, well, maybe it's, something like ADHD. And we both kind of started diving into it a little bit and researching. And we kind of, I encouraged him to look at ADHD. And he, oh, camera, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, just do that. There we go. Adjust the light a little bit. Anyways, so my son was having some difficulties at school. And so after some deliberation between us, I encouraged him to look at ADHD, and he agreed. And then he got tested and all that happy, fun stuff. And oh my gosh, this camera. And so he was diagnosed with it, high functioning, because, he had made it through high school fine, A student, all that kind of stuff. And so it was never diagnosed with him as a child. So it was only diagnosed because he went in there curious about it and wanting to know more. And so after he was diagnosed, he, comes to tell me about it. And he's like, Dad, that's definitely us, meaning you're probably also. And so for curiosity's sake, I went and got tested. And, the psychologist was questioning me about, why look at it at this point in your life? Obviously, you haven't looked into it before this, because at the time I was, early 50s. So why look into it now? He says, well, it's more for curiosity's sake. I've known some things about me that have been a struggle and not really know why and never identified it. And I don't know if it's just, me as a person, who I am, or if there's something more to it. And my son was diagnosed with ADHD and curious if that's what it is. So he tested me. I was tested for it or tested positive for it or whatever. It's a scale. It's kind of whether or not you cross a threshold with so many indicators, let's just say. And the test is no big deal. If you want to take that for your own curiosity, if you, after watching this, you think, oh, maybe I am too. Maybe I could get whatever. So, and this is a disclaimer also. I'm not a doctor. This is not forcing you or urging you to do anything with your life. This is not a selling you on meds or pushing you to do anything with your ADHD or your health issues. This is just my experience. So take it with a grain of salt. Maybe you can relate. Maybe it can benefit you, inspire you to do something with your life that may help you, that kind of stuff. This is just a life experience. So I go through it and get tested. And, like I said, I'm on the scale. And doctor's like, do you want me to give you a diagnosis so you have a diagnosis of this? And I did, at the time, I didn't really wonder why it would matter. So I just said, sure, whatever. Yeah, mark it down. And so then, we kind of leap ahead here now. Well, I'll give a couple things with my life too. So as a kid growing up, I had a hard time with certain things in school. I had a hard time learning certain things, which basically was stuff of no interest to me. So when I want to learn stuff, my ADHD, I can hyper focus on stuff, become, do the type where I become an expert on it and really indulge myself with the experience of it. Cause I'm hyper focused and I'm really engaged and I really want to know more. So I'm the type that kind of becomes a self-proclaimed expert on anything I'm interested in the moment. So, but in high school and stuff like that, what I was learning in school never captured me. It never interested me. It didn't stimulate me, that kind of stuff. So I kind of struggled through K through 12, just trying to meet the expectations of what it was to get through and, B minus, C plus student, whatever, somewhere in there, nothing great, just eking by type stuff. So I got some notes here to keep me on track. So through my life, I've, after now learning more about it, I've realized what I was doing in my life to manage it, or manage my ADHD in kind of simple terms is a problem with dopamine delivery, a dopamine management problem. Your brain gets dopamine and that's what stimulates you to be productive, to do something, to tackle a situation, your obligations as an adult or whatever, and we get dopamine from exercise, just stimulation, talking, hobbies. That's way to encourage more dopamine naturally. And then you can get dopamine from, some people get it from alcohol, from nicotine, caffeine, that kind of stuff. And so there's stimulants that kind of encourage it too, but it's not, it's not healthy and it's not as long lasting and it leads to other problem type stuff. So anyways, through my life, exercise and hobbies and stuff like that, I've kind of managed my life to the point that I wasn't having any issues before this. And, and what was happening, what was new in my life now was I was now taking care of my father who's got Alzheimer's dementia. He moved in with me about 6 years ago. And so that added a lot of stress to my life, which caused me to go more and more down the rabbit hole of using caffeine and sugar to try to get that feeling normal, that we try to get from what dopamine gives us. And dropped some of the healthy stuff, not to blame the situation on anybody, but I'd started going down the, spiraling basically and not being able to, not focused on what it was that helped manage my life and it was crashing. Yeah. I mean, that's essentially what it was. It was crashing. So it led me to a really bad place. I got to the point where some people call it ADHD paralysis, and I definitely experienced that. I got to the point where I couldn't do anything. My brain knew what I wanted to do. I had a list of things I needed to do. I was mentally wanting to do it and I couldn't. And that's something that's really hard for people to understand who haven't experienced it. You'll get people minimalizing it who don't get it. It's like, well, just do it. Yeah, that's exactly it. I want to just do it. I can't. And so this is the first time I ever experienced that in my life, at 50 some years old. Up until that point, I've been able to manage my life in such a way that I'd never experienced that. So I had a system in place that worked for me to function in, the neurotypical world, and it had worked for me for most of my life. But outside situations, outside circumstances impacting me in such a way I wasn't able to manage my life as well, dealing with my dad and the added stress of that and no support system. I started to have a lot of problems. Wasn't functioning, wasn't doing anything. I mean, literally, like on the couch, just staring. What do I do? How do I do this? How do I get out of this? And then using caffeine and sugar trying to make me feel normal. I mean, ultimately, I should have been going back to the gym. I should have been going for walks. I mean, hindsight is always 2020, right? Can't beat ourselves up for that. All that stuff would have helped. But anyways, it still led me to this point in my life. So yeah, so we got to this point where, like I said, ADHD paralysis, struggling, trying to get out of my own, can't get out of my own way is the way I describe it. It was like a door was shut and I couldn't go through it. So venting to my son a little bit and getting words of encouragement for him. He's like, go to the doctor, get it checked out, get it figured out. This is beyond you at this point. And of course, men in our society, our culture, meaning the United States, we are, we're taught at a young age to be self-reliant and our only value is what we can do as a man. So it's really hard because of what society is put onto us at a young age. I don't know if it does so much with today's kids, but, we're expected to perform all the time, so it's tough for us to ask for help a lot of the times, at least the older school, guys my age and stuff. Because like I said, we're told to just be self-reliant, tough it out. If things are too bad for you, just tough it out and it'll get better eventually. You just got to keep pushing. And that wasn't working in the situation. It was much bigger than that. It was, like I said, beyond my control, unfortunately. And so I'm very resistant to meds and stuff like that. And I was not wanting to do that because there's a lot of stigma with the meds for this. And I don't want to mention names and stuff because I don't know how YouTube is funny about some stuff. So I don't want to talk like I am endorsing a med or pushing it or saying you deserve it or need it or whatever. So if you want to know the meds that are typically used for ADHD, you can Google that. So my son had been on the meds off and on. He had good results from them. Wasn't 100% sold on them. Didn't like the way they felt in his system at times, but they did work for him to get over situations where he needed to be focused. Um, so he was encouraging me to see a doctor. I did, and that was about 30 days ago. And that was kind of the inspiration for this video, is to tell you about my journey of getting on meds and how it impacted my life and where I'm at now, and just to give, share my experience and maybe it'll help you. Um, and I got some feedback from some friends on Facebook about other videos I've done kind of around this kind of stuff, and get some very nice responses. Heartfelt, touching stuff. And it's encouraged me to do more on these type videos and just see if I can get some traction with it. Because if you look at this channel, obviously it's a new channel. It's in its infancy. I've done other YouTube channels on different topics, and I wanted to touch on this type of stuff and some other things, but I didn't want to contaminate my other channels. So that's the reason for this channel, is to do more videos like this, discussions, live streams, vlog type stuff, talking to people, human interest type stuff. And as a result of talking about that, I got some people that want to do vids now. So it's hopefully we're going to do some more stuff with interacting with people directly, personally, and share their experiences. So, anyways, a little off topic, but that's what's behind this one. Um, so about 30 days ago, I decided to go, get a doctor's visit going to do a follow up. And, part of this spiraling stuff in my life currently, or, up until 30 days ago or whatever, self-care is out the window. I haven't been to the doctor in a long time for anything, kind of like just, it's part of the ADHD paralysis stuff where you're just kind of paranoid in your own head and afraid to do anything. And if you do this, it'll trigger this. So you don't want to do this. So you don't do that, blah, 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 blah. That hyper thinking where you're just overthinking to the point you don't allow yourself to do anything. And that's kind of what the ADHD paralysis is. Fear of doing something and causing something else. Whereas if you just, if you were to do it and allow yourself to do it, it's out of the way and it's one less thing to think about. So now I've got such a list of things to do that it's really impacting me and feeling like, why try anything? Why do anything? And I'm also diagnosed with depression. So that enters into it also, where you got two tug of warring at each other, causing negative impact on your functions and just really draining. So I go to the doc. Initial visit, because of the caffeine, the sugar crap, trying to get my normal, get my dopamine through that versus the healthier reasons. My weight was up again. I've had 3 times in my life where my weight has been where it's at now. And it's usually contributed to the underlying reason, high stress, and then using running to caffeine and sugar to help, get me through it or whatever. At least that's what I'm telling myself. And the first time was a bad marriage. And that's not to point fingers at anybody, but it was an unhealthy marriage. It wasn't working well. And I was doing what I could to keep myself from running away from the relationship, and just, this is what I got to do to stay in it. I'm going to need caffeine and sugar. I'm going to need to medicate myself in such a way. And I don't use drugs, alcohol, nicotine, that kind of stuff. So in one way it's nice to know you don't use that stuff because that stuff's not healthy. Well, soda and sugar's not either. It's probably just as bad for you. So wasn't necessarily a safer way. It was probably just a cheaper way to deal with it. And then impulsivity, shopping and stuff like that, so that was during my marriage. And so at that point, when the marriage is starting to fall apart, I started to invest in myself and get healthy again and drop the sugar, drop the caffeine. Well, I shouldn't say drop the soda, and started walking. And there again, now you're creating healthy dopamine. And now my life was getting better again because I was doing self-care. And then the next time I put on a bunch of weight was, let's see, when was that? It was probably this most recent one, because the one before, so the one during the divorce, there was one time before that. And that was also brought on by problems in the marriage. So the 2 previous times I put on a bunch of weight, it was stress from an unhealthy relationship. Let's just say it in broad terms, because we're not here to diagnose my marriage problems or she type stuff. So anyways, unhealthy relationship wasn't working for us. So the most recent time that I gained weight, where I'm at now, was brought on by the stress of, taking on my father, basically being a care provider, solo, no outside support, that kind of stuff. So it was very stressful in that regard, taking care of somebody's life. When you believe in yourself and you think you can do anything and you just talk yourself into situations, I don't encourage you to be a caregiver with no outside support doing it solo. It sounds like a good thing and it's an endearing thing to do. It's admirable. It does feel like the right thing. And on the outside, everybody's going to think you're doing the right thing because you're doing this thing for your father, which, there's no regrets in doing that. I didn't know the impact it was going to have on me, because I've done a lot of things just believing in it and just get through it. So, anyways, led to me spiraling again, not managing my life, falling, and that's probably the depression creeping in. And then I stopped doing the healthy stuff for self care, the other stuff that worked for my with ADHD and dopamine delivery, exercise, hobbies, interests, stuff where I get dopamine healthy. And so the depression creeps in, and then I'm kind of self medicating through caffeine and sugar and kind of just existing, not really doing much in life, but day to day, barely there type stuff. So like I said, then the weight starts piling again. So I'm using food and caffeine and sugar and trying to feel normal. And then the weight piles on, and that has adverse effects indirectly. That affects your mood also. All that, and then, and then as you eat more and more to try and get the same, not that you're addicted and immune, like you're building a tolerance to it. It's just that you're not burning it off either. Also, you're taking on all this junk, trying to feel normal, but it's not something that's leaving your system. Now you're pounding on calories that you're not burning, and soda just in general is just pure crap. It's whatever. You get it. So get to the doc, get meds, and start the meds. Well, before I start the meds, going to the doctor, I decided I'm going to quit soda again. I'm going to make this huge lifestyle change. I'm going to quit high sugar foods. I'm going to start exercising. And this is stuff where I can do a complete 180 if I'm determined. When I want to do it, I can just do it. I can quit soda cold turkey. I just have to decide to. That's kind of, maybe that's my superpower. I don't know. I don't have to. I mean, it's not easy. It's still a struggle, but I will be determined enough to do it, is my point. So before going into the doctor, I did a 24-hour fast, or maybe 30 some hours, something like that, trying to reset my appetite to my cravings, which I also, added quitting soda and getting off of high sugar foods. So I get to the doc, tell her all this stuff, and she's like, okay, so what are you here for? I says, I want to discuss options. And she's like, meds? I'm like, yes. And told her my son was on meds and talked about him and his experiences, da 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 da. So she's like, okay, we'll start you on this. And there's two forms. There's fast acting in and out of your system quickly, like 4 to 6 hours. You'll feel instantly something happening, but it's going to burn off quick. So if you need to get through a whole day, and it's not just get to lunch and then you'll just figure out the rest of the day, or you can get long lasting, which is more of a 12-hour type. I had tried that, but I didn't like it. I didn't like how it left your system in such a way. I didn't like the way it felt. So I felt like I was kind of getting a hangover once I was off of it, and I needed to be on it again to keep from feeling it. So I felt like I could feel dependent on it. And with the fast acting, it's out of your system, like I said, 4 to 6 hours, which for me, that works. Because usually if I can get the ball rolling in the morning, I can cruise through the rest of the day. So I usually don't need a lot of days I don't need a second dose. Because that's what I'm prescribed now, twice a day, because it's short acting. So start taking it and immediately feel something different. I feel a presence. I feel it enter your system because it acts quickly. You feel it come into you. Little unnerving at first because I'm not a person that's experienced a lot. I've never done recreational drugs and that kind of stuff. So maybe it's similar to that. I don't know. Because, when you start researching this med, you know what it's made out of and what it's connected to. So there is some of those qualities, I'm sure, in it. So I get on these and immediately I feel like the door was shut and this opened the door and now I could walk through it. Whereas before the door was locked, I really wanted to get through the door, but I didn't know how to open the door. Didn't have the key. So, and this isn't something you have to build up in your system over time either. This is something that'll work day one. You'll get results day one. It will work. It's not like antidepressants or something. Well, we need to get them on board for a good 30 days and then see how you're doing and see if it makes a difference. This is totally different stuff. And this is a class 2. So they don't just give these out easy either. You have to have a diagnosis for ADHD to get these meds. But so notice, after being on this for a while, it's also an appetite suppressant. And it's not something that's overpowering an food appetite suppressant, but when you're busy and you're cruising and when you're engaged and you're doing stuff, you're not going to think about eating. You're not going to have cravings at all, which is nice because, like I said, I'm really overweight right now and I'm not happy with it. So that's a bonus, I think, for me at least. But yeah, and there's no such thing as a magic pill either. This isn't something that's going to fix other issues with your ability to do things. Like it says, it's more like if there's a door shut and you really want to go through it, the door's now open. It's not going to make you more productive. It's not going to make you manage your life better. It's, and so I have tried like antidepressants in the past. And what I didn't like was like antidepressants. People think, oh, it's going to make you happy. It's going to make you, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Well, at least not with me. Essentially it made me flat, meaning almost emotionless, and it really bothered me because I didn't feel happiness out of it either. I didn't feel the depression type feelings weren't there, but the good feelings weren't there either. And it also took away from interest in sexual activity, of course. So it just made me flat. So it's like, no, I can't do this. I'd rather ride the roller coaster of my emotions than deal with feeling flat all the time. And I have a career, the thing that pays the bills. I'm not a YouTuber by any means full time. So I was worried about self-awareness and stuff like that, and being in a situation where I could get seriously injured because of the type of work I do. So I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't be numb to my surroundings. This could be very dangerous for me, and I don't want to get hurt. So with that in mind, I was, that's my experience with antidepressants. So anyway, so back to the meds for ADHD. So like I said, it's not a fix-all. It's for people that want to get things done, want to be productive, and they feel it and they want it. And when they go to do it, their mind prevents them, meaning it's like self-doubt, whatever the emotions are that are racing through your head that keep you from doing it. It's going to basically take that wall down. So you still have to want, and the reason I say this, because I experienced this, because with the appetite suppressant, going back to that, I'm starting to eat a lot less. And so much that I've lost considerable weight. We'll talk about that later. But so you know how you can just get kind of absent-minded and unable to focus, like if you haven't eaten in a while, your brain runs on glucose. And so I'm not really eating high sugars at all and not eating a lot of anything. And so I'm having these moments where I'm just kind of spacey and disconnected. And it's like, even on the meds, and it's like, why am I feeling this way now? The meds am I getting a tolerance already? Am I, are they not working? And it's like, this is scaring me because it's like, I don't want to have to take more of this stuff to feel normal. And so then I started eating in those moments, and it's like, and then it was like my brain just all of a sudden sparked and started working. And it's like, oh, and there's kind of my ADHD brain. It's like, I start connecting the dots, and it's like, oh, you're getting that impact of lack of nutrition or lack of calories or whatever it is, malnourished, whatever, I'm not malnourished, of course, but where you're needing your basic food requirements or whatever for you to function. So I'm depriving myself of calories essentially by not paying attention to my body's needs. And I'm kind of ignoring that in a way because I want to lose weight. That's not why I'm on this, but it's like, this is that benefit. So started connecting the dots, and it's like, okay, I cannot be on these meds without eating because they don't really work because my brain isn't really functioning properly when I'm not eating, or malnourished, low calories, not enough calories in my system, whatever it is. I'm not a doc. So struggling in those moments. So I gotta start my morning with some type of breakfast. Even if I don't feel hungry, I need at least to have enough food on board, so at least my brain's functioning at a normal level, because that inhibited me a lot. And it was initially going well just because I was still kind of in my normal way of doing things, and I started cutting back on my food just because of not having a natural craving. I mean, my body still feels hungry at times, but I'm not used to that because I was always trying to manage my dopamine by eating. And so now that I'm not having those urges to do it that way, I'm not eating as much. So I'm actually eating now when I feel like I need food, which I haven't felt that way since I was a kid. And that's really wonderful because like I said, I ate to fix myself, make myself feel normal. Sugar, caffeine, crap, whatever. And so that was enlightening. It's like, okay, good. Now we found something that's helping without running to food, sugar, caffeine, all that garbage. Well, I mean, not all food is garbage, but I was using junk food. So that's contributing to my weight gain. So I had to start figuring out some type of eating schedule and try to maintain it so I can, because the main reason for me going on this is because I was extremely unproductive, going back to the ADHD paralysis crap. And so being productive now, or the ability to, now I have to want to, because that's the big part. Like I said, it's not a magic pill. It doesn't make you Superman. It allows you to be Superman, but you have to want to be Superman. That's the easiest way to say it. So, which led to me getting on meds, because I had all the intentions of doing the stuff I wanted to do, but I could no longer get myself to do it. So now I'm on this and I'm starting to get a rhythm, starting to pick up stuff that I need to do, been ignoring, productivity, that kind of stuff. I'm self-employed, so I don't have the accountability of a day-to-day boss where it's like, you got to be here at 9, you have to do this from this till 5 p.m., and then you can go home. So that's everything with ADHD. Accountability makes a huge difference for me. I need somebody relying on me, and I don't want to disappoint them. When I have that gives me dopamine, and that gives me motivation, and I get stuff done. And right now, not married currently, so don't have somebody leaning on me. I don't have a job where I have a boss that's leaning on me expectations. So that's the way it kind of contributed to the spiraling to where I'm at now. So, oh yeah, what a fun time. So we get to these 30 days now. So I went on the meds around March 17th, thereabouts. That might be the exact date even. So kick sugar, kick caffeine, kick soda. And I did notice the caffeine withdrawal. And I've quit soda more than once in my life. And like I said, done it cold turkey, which whatever. If I want to, I can. I just have to want to. And every time I do quit it, it's the caffeine withdrawals that are the hardest part for me. It's the soda itself it has to be a certain soda. We're not going to pimp brands here, and it has to be, that. So I don't have any other sources of caffeine. That was the challenge now. So looking for a caffeine replacement, and don't like tea, don't like coffee, and that kind of stuff. So that's my conundrum, and that's what's always the temptation to go back to soda. So then I discover caffeine in pill form, which is roughly 100 milligrams of caffeine. And just for reference, 12-ounce soda is about 30 milligrams, somewhere in there per can of soda, depending on the soda, so it varies. So looking back on my soda intake, I was getting around 150 to 200 milligrams of caffeine a day throughout the day. And so these caffeine pills, which is over-the-counter stuff, you can just buy it at your grocery store. Can't guarantee your grocery store has it, but it's out there. It's it's not something you need a prescription. It's 100 milligrams, and I started taking that in the morning with my meds. And that's been a good combination. That gets me going, kind of like that first soda of the morning, that first cup of coffee, that kind of stuff. And it does set the pace. And so it's doing for me similar to what it was doing for me when I did regular exercise. So when I was self-managing before meds, I had to start my day at the gym. I had to start the ball rolling with that endorphin dopamine release from exercising. And then I had to ride that wave, that dopamine hit within an hour or two. Otherwise, I was going to go backwards and need another dopamine hit. So once I got rolling, but if I got home after the gym and I got stalled or distracted or whatever, and I went past 2 hours or I went down the rabbit hole on the internet, I would be back to almost ADHD paralysis type stuff where I had no motivation to do anything. So I had to ride that wave in order to keep my day going. So that's how I managed it, before meds. And I really, honestly, I want to return to that life. Honestly, that's where I want to get to eventually, is get back to that way of living and not rely on the meds. Maybe use the meds as a backup, as an occasional use. So same thing now. The meds, I'm getting that good release in the morning, then combined with the caffeine, I'm feeling good and I'm getting stuff done. And I'm getting my productivity back. I'm starting to get a routine in, and it's working. It's definitely something that's made a positive improvement for me for the ADHD stuff, and the side effects being it's a little bit of an appetite suppressant. I have had a couple high sugar type things randomly through this, and what I did notice was, how you get that, that little bit of a buzz or up feeling from, stuff that's super sugary, high content sugar. I still can feel coming off of it like, oh, it's burning off. And my brain's saying, well, if you want to maintain that, you need more sugar. And so just to let you know, the meds do not counter that. It's not as strong as it was when I wasn't on the meds, but it's still there. And I was like, ooh, I can still feel that. This isn't, yeah. It may kind of keep your mind off of eating, but I'm grateful I quit high sugar, because I would probably still be riding the roller coaster with high stuff with high amounts of sugar in it. It wouldn't, put it this way, it was a good combination to dump sugar right now at the same time. Just so I wouldn't be on top of the meds trying to do it with sugar and getting, the bad habits. Overall trying to get rid of all the all the things that I perceived as a bad habit with managing my ADHD. So the sugar and soda stuff had to go. And I'm glad it did. I don't have that roller coaster and trying to maintain that sugar buzz throughout the day, which is wonderful, because that's contributed to my weight loss also, giving up that stuff, all this unnecessary calories just to try and feel normal mentally. So it is, overall, it's a good combination. It's working, and just to give you an idea, I mean, this isn't to brag or anything, but what I've done in 30 days compared to what I did before, as far as productivity in my life, like my winter schedule, which we're just coming off of winter here. I live in a snow state. I do snow removal, and we had a really weak winter, and that's bad for me too. I need that accountability. I would rather it snow, once, twice a week, just so I know I got to always be ready for it. And then, because I'm going to be called to do it, I need to perform. People are expecting me. Does a lot for me. So a slow winter doesn't help, because don't get to go outside as much. It's not fun to go outside. Don't get the vitamin D, the sunshine. Don't get the activity as much, because I don't do winter sports. And so this winter was really bad for me, and that contributed to this situation also. So I wasn't doing a lot this winter, barely anything. The only things I was kind of indulging myself was hobbies. And so my productivity and the stuff I needed to do as an adult was falling behind, not being dealt with, So since being on the meds now for 30 days, first of all, I've lost 14 pounds. This isn't the reason for going on the meds, but this was another part of my journey on top of dealing with my ADHD, was to get my health back. So, you can critique it and say you're taking the easy way out, blah, blah, blah. The meds did it. No, the meds didn't do it. I still had to decide to do it. I still had to decide to quit soda. I had to decide to quit high calorie, sugar, unnecessary foods. I had to decide to restrict my portion sizes, not eat the same portions I did before. The meds do make it easier to do that, but you still have to have self-control to not do the stuff that will contribute to weight gain. And if I'm not going to burn enough calories per day to keep those calories off, those calories are just laying there causing me to gain weight. So it's the meds help with not having that constant urge to use food to make yourself feel better. But like I said, you still have to decide, I'm done with this. I'm done with the high sugar crap. I'm done with soda, whatever the stuff that contributes to your problems, weight loss or weight gain. So that's one of the big things. My blood pressure was slightly high going in. It was 130 and now it's down to 114, which that's normally where it used to be for a long time. It was actually around 118, 119 for a long time, but now it's down to 114. Happy about that. Because, yeah, we're getting older. We don't need all that crap rattling around inside of us that's not doing any good except making us unhealthy. What else? So on the productivity side, so I've done YouTube for over a year on another channel, which I kind of parked because I got bored with it. So I have the ability. So my ADHD, I don't drop stuff as quickly as some people do. So maybe that's why I wasn't really discovered until later in life. Not that that needs to be figured out, but anyways, so where was I going with that one? Not that it matters. Nobody's watching anyways. With my YouTube. So I was able to focus on stuff and get the rewards for doing stuff even long term, not flipping hobbies quickly like some people do. I have like about 4 or 5 hobbies in my life and I kind of rotate between them. I have the discipline not to add new hobbies. I'm just like, I'm going back to this one, rotate to this one. So my YouTube channel, after a year, I parked a hobby and parked that YouTube channel. I did 80 some videos in a year and almost got to monetization and realized that channel is more of a niche market and it'll probably never really make decent money either. And I hadn't picked up any sponsorships or anything. And it's like, you know what? I need to just walk away for this and accept that maybe YouTube isn't for me because I'm wasting a lot of time on this, hyper focusing on it. And it impacts me from making income at my skills that I know how to make money at. A lot more money than making zero money from YouTube. So in this last 30 days, I fired up my YouTube because after starting this, I'm like, well, this is interesting. This is a way to get back into making videos on topics that I can sustain longer because it's my everyday life and it's something I'm dealing with daily and it's human interest. Other people are dealing with it. This might give me that little something I need to create something. That's, part of my hobbies is being, I'm artistic type. So I like to create. So I get to create videos now. So in these 30 days, I've made 12 long form videos and 20 shorts. So that's 32 videos. And the shorts weren't made from long form videos and edited down. They're all original independent shorts. So there's my productivity. I went from making no videos and not taking care of my day-to-day life necessities, paying bills, letting that stuff slide and not, just barely surviving to back to my old self. If I want to focus on do something, I can do it. So that's where it made the biggest improvement because I wanted to and I wasn't able to, and now I can if I want to. So yeah. And with these shorts and these videos, I got Facebook to even monetize me in 30 days. So I was like, okay, this is working. I am productive. And I got some really nice feedback from some of my videos from close friends. And it motivated me to do this video, I guess. So I can't say it's for you. Can't say it's for everybody. This is what worked for me and I'm glad it did. And I feel better and I like my life now. I'm making progress. I'm getting results. I'm losing weight. I'm being productive. I'm starting to multitask again and juggle a bunch of stuff at the same time. That's something I'm able to do, and that's my normal. I like having multiple things going on at once. Job, hobby, career, friends, whatever, just all this stuff again. Just juggle nonstop and bouncing between them. That gives me my dopamine, naturally. So it feels good to get back to that. I'm functioning. I'm not going to say I don't need the meds anymore, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not far enough out of the woods yet to say, oh yeah, let's just go back to this. I think I would slide and go backwards. It's too soon. I think I have to kind of retrain myself and get back into what my normal was and kind of get a firm grasp on it, and then see if I can start weaning off the meds. So right now I'm happy with it. The only noticeable side effect to the meds, like I said, is the appetite suppression. And by that I mean, how does that feel, or what does that look like? I don't, like I said, I was kind of managing my eating with cravings to manage my dopamine. It wasn't out of hunger. So I was really eating for not the reasons I should be. Eating for fun and pleasure, not eating to refuel, for example. So I don't feel the need to operate that way right now. I don't have that constant craving to eat something. And especially if I'm eating junk food, high sugary stuff, then you want to keep that sugar buzz going. And now that I've weaned myself off the high sugar and the soda, like I said, that does enter back in even on the meds. Cause like I said, I've tried some sugary stuff, and it's like, as you come off that sugar rush, it's like, you got to have more if you want to keep it going. It's like, it wasn't as strong as it was off the meds, but it was there. So it's like, that's not a cure for that, or this doesn't stop that. That's still there. So it was really a good choice to wean or to cut back on the high sugar and eliminate the soda, because I think I still would have had a problem with that stuff on the meds. So I think it was a good combination to do all that, in conjunction with each other. I think it's making for a better success. And then as a result, I'm shedding pounds. Just by the soda I'm cutting out and the high sugar stuff, I'm probably dropped, 700 calories a day, probably at least. And with a little bit of the appetite suppression, I don't feel the need to replace those calories, because I'm not, you know what I mean? Because of the way I was responding to the way I was eating before. So that's the plus side to all this. So yeah, it's working. The meds you do feel it. You do feel it come into you. You do feel its presence. I don't feel it working on an empty stomach. Not that it's not absorbed or anything not entering your system. What I mean by I shouldn't say empty stomach. It doesn't work as well if you're like calorie deficient, meaning kind of struggling with, continuity. Your brain's kind of out there because you haven't been eating in a while. And it doesn't work. For me, it doesn't work. And then it doesn't work at all. But if I have the meds in me and I'm feeling that way, and then I start eating, my brain wakes up, and it's like, okay, you did this to yourself. You're malnourishing your brain or depriving it of calories that it needs, whatever that type of thing. And then I'm back to where like I am right now, where I'm able to do stuff, functioning, focusing, being able to carry through, that kind of stuff. So it's been a journey to kind of learn how to run my life and get back to some type of normal. Some people have talked about the problems with the meds are it doesn't teach you, the meds don't teach you how to function and operate. And I'll agree to that. It's like I said earlier, it opens a door. The door, for me, my experience is the door was shut. I really, really, really wanted to go through the door, to go back to where I could go through the door easily. And the meds open the door. So if you're not already a person that's frustrated, you can't do something, and you're ready to do it and you want to do it, the meds aren't going to, if you're not that person, the meds don't bridge that gap. The meds work great if you're determined and you want it and you know what you're going to do, and you just can't. You still, if you're not that type, you're still going to have to learn how to, okay, now I have the ability to do more. What do I do? How do I do it? Whereas I kind of had that system in place before, and I was doing it through natural, what do you want to call it? Natural care for my ADHD, whatever, natural regulation of dopamine. Or so I had a system in place that worked for a long time, and now I'm kind of going back to that, except I'm not relying on my ability to naturally or get a natural dopamine, release. So the meds are helping when I'm not doing something that's promoting it naturally. So until I can get back to where I have a good solid routine planted back in my life, and then I hope to wean off the meds, because I'm 50 some years old. I did it for 50 some years without it. I have a lot of stress right now. The meds are helping me get back to normal, is the way I see it. Get back to where I was. That's what I'm hoping for. So yeah. Anyways, here's the humbling thing about YouTube. We just did almost an hour of live stream and nobody was watching. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what's humbling about doing videos, especially a live stream. Nobody's watching. Why do you want to do a live stream? Nobody's watching, So, but you can't do it if you don't do it. So you have to start at zero. And that's kind of the attitude you got to have once you can start functioning again with your ADHD brain, is you just have to start running again. Sometimes it's not always the right direction. We got to start running, because that's what creates more dopamine, and that's what gets you going and keeps you going. And so when you spiral and do a bunch of unhealthy things to make it worse, and maybe you're self-medicating with stuff that gives you a little bit of dopamine, but it's also unhealthy for you, like drugs, alcohol, nicotine, stimulants that burn out quick, and then you get in this never-ending chase. And yeah, that's where you got to cut some of that crap out and get to a more natural way of doing it. So when you're chasing your dopamine naturally, at least it's benefiting you and it's not hurting yourself, physically, mentally. Because I definitely feel better. I'm sleeping better. I'm dropping weight. So I feel better for losing weight also, not just feeling better from being on the meds. Yeah, it's a positive change for me, and if you're struggling and you don't want to ask for help, try it. Just meet with a doc, see what they suggest. There's stuff out there that can help you. That's, this might be beyond self-management at the time for you. Maybe you have, like me, maybe you've been able to self-management for a long time and function, and maybe you can't right now. Stress of the world, something's interacting with you that you're just not who you were. And maybe even been diagnosed for ADHD also. It's pretty simple. It's cognitive test. It's kind of fun. It's puzzles, stuff like that, words. It's, some of it's basically an IQ test. It took a couple hours, very, very easy. Not, nothing negative about the experience, as long as you go into it with an open mind and don't overthink it and think he's going to think this if I say this. No, answer naturally, because they don't know who you are unless you answer these questions naturally. Don't get in your own way. Don't do that. So some of this, it's time. Some of it's time to see how fast you can figure something out, or if you can figure it out in an amount of time. And some of it's kind of knowledge type stuff, and it's fun. It's interesting. If you look at it from the aspect, I'm going to learn something about me, and just take it as a new experience to just dive into something new. If you're that type of person, it's interesting. It can be fun. But yeah, if you're struggling and you think this kind of connects with you, yeah, go learn about it. Talk to your regular physician. Tell them you might have suspicions about, or wondering if you've got this, and this. And doc will ask you some questions and probably ask you, do you want to look further into it? Do you want to see a psychologist and possibly get diagnosed and blah, blah, blah. Or he may say, this sounds kind of similar. Maybe you should get diagnosed. Are you willing to do that? And he may refer you to somebody. It's not a big deal. It's not, it's not a big deal. If you want to find out, it's pretty easy. And then you can decide, if you do find out you are, then you can decide if you want to go on meds. Or maybe it's enough information where you're like, okay, I'm going to go back to doing the things where I was self-managing before, and I didn't know I was self-managing something. I didn't know I was managing ADHD with the things I was doing for my life. Anyways, it's an awakening experience. It's a knowledge quest, that kind of thing. So, oh Lordy. So here we are doing a live stream, 0 people watching. How do you feel about that? Well, It's humbling to know that you're speaking to yourself into a camera, watching yourself on a monitor, and nobody else is watching. The long form content, when I make videos, more people watch. Not a lot, but more people watch. You get a few clicks, and it's like, oh, finally, I reached somebody. It's the attitude you got to have a little bit with YouTube and videos, because nobody finds you instantly. There are viral successes, of course, and we see those things, but that's like the odds of you becoming a professional athlete, you know, and especially if you're like an older adult. Okay, you're probably never going to be a professional athlete, at least the conventional sports. Maybe at like chess or something where you think, but then even our brains slow down as you get older. There's the ADHD going off the rails crap. Anyways, going off in a different direction. Trying to do better with that, especially with videos, because it's hard to watch a video where it's not what the title was. So anyways, I'm just stretching this to an hour for my own sake. Nobody watches the end of an hour video anyways. So, but if you do, God bless you. Thank you for hanging on. Hope you're doing well. If you like this kind of comment, subscribe, drop us a like, whatever. Leave a, do something to help me out a little bit, just to nudge me a little, give me a little push, give me a little inspiration that, okay, I reached somebody. Or if I don't hear from you, that's a little push in my direction. Hey, maybe you're just barking up the wrong tree. Go do what you know how to do, and maybe YouTube isn't for you. So anyways, God bless you. Hope you're doing well. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe.